Trita Parsi is the founder and former president of the National Iranian American Council. He explains the significance of this attack.
Well, first of all, I think what the Iranians have done here is quite limited and perhaps even performative in the sense that it has clearly been designed not to escalate matters, but to save face for the Iranians, be able to say that they have responded, that they violated an Israeli red line just as much as Israel violated an Iranian red line through its attack, and then leave it at that. Now, the ball is frankly back in Biden's court. If he chooses to deem this to be a disproportionate response and gives a further green light to the Israelis to escalate matters further, well, then this will very likely lead to a much larger military confrontation that will suck in the U.S. as well. Biden has the ability, mindful of the fact that the Israelis did not warn him of their attack against the Iranian embassy in Damascus, and that this actually did contradict U.S. interests because Biden says that he doesn't want to see a regional war. He has the ability to say no to the Israelis. Whether he will choose to do so, whether he will muster the courage to do so or not, remains to be seen. But if he doesn't, then we are likely going to go towards a much larger war, and it will probably seal the end of Biden's presidency and make sure that he doesn't get reelected, because the American public has absolutely no appetite whatsoever for such a war in the Middle East.
And it seems that officials from both countries also don't have an appetite for a more intense conflict between the two countries. We heard earlier from Iran's permanent mission to the UN saying that this attack has concluded. The Israelis are also saying that the attack from the Iranians really hasn't caused much damage. It caused some minor damage to an Israeli military base, and that it managed to repel most of the attack from the Iranians. Do you believe this is where it ends for now, that this Iranian attack and the counterattack from Israel is it?
Well, the Israelis certainly will point out that the attack, at least so far, does not seem to have caused much damage. But I do not believe that they will try to stop there. Netanyahu has an interest in prolonging and enlarging this war. The minute this war ends, his political career will end as well, and most likely his prison sentence will begin. So he has no interest in de-escalating. He has no interest in ending. He actually has a direct interest in escalating. And in fact, the more this conflict escalates, the less attention the world will give to the slaughter that he is engaged in Gaza. Already we have seen that over the course of the last couple of days, Gaza has fallen behind in the headlines, and the focus has mostly been about what happens between Israel and Iran. This serves Netanyahu's interest perfectly, because this once again positions, at least in the American narrative, as Israel being under attack, that it is the weaker party, that it is defending itself, which is a direction that the debate in Washington was not going in, particularly after the Israelis killed the aid workers from World Kitchen in Gaza. So this has shifted the narrative already in Netanyahu's favor, and I don't see why he would think it would be good for him to stop at this point.
And we know that before this Iranian attack on Israel, the relationship between the US President Joe Biden and Netanyahu had become increasingly strained. In fact, the two leaders hadn't spoken for quite some time. As you say, the US had condemned the Israeli killings of those 7 aid workers from the World Central Kitchen. It had also was increasingly frustrated with Netanyahu's insistence on invading Rafah in southern Gaza. So do you believe that in the wake of this Iranian attack, it might bring the two leaders closer, at least for now?
That certainly seems to be Netanyahu's calculation, and it also seems to be Biden's instinct. Biden doesn't want to be in conflict with Netanyahu. He doesn't want to have any open tension with the Israeli prime minister, regardless of who he is and regardless of what policies he pursues, even when those policies are completely in contradiction with U.S. interests. So it brings Biden into a comfort zone that he's much, much happier with. even though, again, it will not serve U.S. interests if this escalates into a much larger war.
Now, in terms of the Iranian side, we know that Israel over the years had targeted and assassinated many Iranian assets and individuals from Iranian sites in Syria to Iranian nuclear scientists. What was it about the attack on the Iranian embassy in Syria on April 1st that really tipped things over the edge, that prompted this direct attack on Israel?
Well, first of all, when it comes to many of these other attacks that Israel has engaged in inside of Iran, those are, of course, attacks on Iranian soil. They're targeted assassinations, and the Israelis never took public credit for them. As a result, it also made it easier for the Iranians to respond in a shadow war rather than respond in the manner they did this time around. Given the openness of this attack against the Syrian the Iranian consulate in Syria, as well as the very high-level officials that were killed this time around. And given the larger context of how Israel has been engaging in this slaughter in Gaza, and Iran has not been as aggressive towards Israel as some of the partners of Iran in the region would like it to be, particularly the Houthis. All of these different things, combined with the fact that there was plenty of people within the Iranian regime that believed that the absence of a stronger response from Iran to earlier Israeli attacks had led to a situation in which Iran's deterrence had been weakened and that the Israelis had been enabled to go as far as to strike an Iranian embassy. All of this came together and essentially pushed Iranians towards some sort of a response. Having said that, I think it's also noteworthy that the Iranians were signaling that had the UN Security Council condemned the Israeli attack on the Iranian embassy, which it didn't because of it being blocked by the United States, United Kingdom, and France, Iran might not have felt the need to engage in the attack that it did today. And it may have been able to save face without actually engaging in a retaliation.